What's going on, kids? Pastor Jacob here with another LifeGroup video. I'm so excited to be with you today. I love our lesson for this week. Today, our lesson is in the book of Nehemiah. If you've been with us these past several weeks, I bet you know exactly where Nehemiah is. Nehemiah comes after the book of Ezra that we were just in these last 2 weeks. And Nehemiah comes before the book of Esther, which we were in just a few weeks back. We're in Nehemiah chapter 1 today. So take a minute and find Nehemiah chapter 1. Nehemiah is such a great book to go through. Nehemiah teaches us so much about what it looks like to follow God. Nehemiah had a very important job. He was the king's cupbearer. Now, being the cupbearer meant that you had to taste all of the king's food and drink to make sure that it was good and make sure that it was safe. One day, some men came to see Nehemiah. They told him some sad news. They told him that the city of Jerusalem was in trouble. The city walls were in ruin. The gates of the city had been burned down. They had no protection if someone decided to attack them. This broke Nehemiah's heart. The city he loved was in trouble. The Bible tells us in Nehemiah chapter 1 verse 4, this is Nehemiah speaking. He said, "When I heard these words, I sat down and I wept." To weep means to cry a lot. Nehemiah said he mourned for a number of days, fasting and praying before the God of heaven. Nehemiah was crying. He couldn't bear to hear how Jerusalem was in such bad shape. So he began fasting, which means instead of eating, Nehemiah prayed. Nehemiah prayed and prayed and prayed for days. This is the first lesson that Nehemiah teaches us, to pray. You see, kids, Nehemiah had a big problem, and this big problem broke his heart. Nehemiah was ready to work to fix this problem, and we're going to get to that. But first, before anything else, Nehemiah fell to the floor and he prayed. He cried and he prayed and he begged God, "God, please do something." Nehemiah shows us in these chapters how our first response to anything should be prayer, especially any problem. Kids, I see a big problem in our world today. We have people all across the world who don't know who Jesus is. They don't know that Jesus died on the cross for their sins. We have people all across our country who don't know who Jesus is, who don't know how badly they need Jesus to save them from their sins. We have people all in our state and all in our cities who don't know Jesus. That's a problem. And one thing God has really taught me during this time of staying at home is that we're not crying and we're not praying enough for these people. What I challenge all of us to do after this video, grab an adult and go on a prayer walk around your neighborhood. A prayer walk is exactly what it sounds like. It's when you walk and you pray. Pray for the people who live around you. Pray that if they don't know God, God gives you or someone the opportunity to share the gospel with them. Pray that God uses whatever struggle that person may be going through to bring that person closer to God. If you don't have a neighborhood, then drive around and pray for whatever part of the city is that you can find. Prayer is powerful. And Nehemiah shows us just how powerful prayer is and how necessary it is. After Nehemiah had prayed for several days, he was standing before the king, just doing his job. Nehemiah looked sad, though. The king asked him, "Nehemiah, why do you look so sad?" Nehemiah could have gotten in big trouble for being sad around the king, so he got scared. He told the king he was sad because the city he loved was in ruins. The king asked him, "Well, what's your request, Nehemiah?" Nehemiah prayed a quick prayer to God, and then he asked the king, "King, send me to Jerusalem so that I can help lead the effort to rebuild the walls to the city I love." This was a big request because Nehemiah was important. He was a trusted person to the king. He was responsible for keeping the king safe. Losing him for any amount of time was a huge deal. But God answered Nehemiah's prayer. The king let him go and was even going to help with rebuilding the wall by letting Nehemiah use some of the king's supplies. This is the second lesson we learned from Nehemiah. Not only did Nehemiah pray to God, but Nehemiah did something. He took action. Nehemiah didn't just expect God to magically fix the walls, though God certainly could have done that. Nehemiah was ready to go to work, and he knew God would give him the strength to ask the king for help and the strength to lead his people in rebuilding the wall. On your prayer walks around your neighborhood, you should be praying for your neighbors and your friends to know Jesus and know Jesus died on the cross for them. But you should also be ready for God to use you and your family to be the ones to tell those people about Jesus. You need to be ready for action. Pray that God gives you the boldness, He gives you the strength and the courage to share Jesus with those around you. It's time for our memory verse. Do you remember where to find our memory verse for June? Our verse this month is Psalms 104. You ready to practice our verse? Let's do it. Enter His gates with thanksgiving and His courts with praise. Give thanks to Him, bless His name. Psalm 100 verse 4. And for our preschoolers, give thanks to God and bless His name. Psalm 100 verse 4. To help you memorize the verse, we're going to learn some motions to go with this verse. You ready to learn them? Okay. Enter His gates with thanksgiving and His courts with praise. Okay, that's the first part of the verse. Let's try that one more time. Enter His gates with thanksgiving and His courts with praise. All right, good job. All right, you ready for the second part of the verse? Give thanks to Him and bless His name. All right, that one's pretty easy. Let's do the second part one more time. Give thanks to Him and bless His name. Great job. Let's do the whole verse together now. Enter His gates with thanksgiving and His courts with praise. Give thanks to Him and bless His name. Psalm 100 verse 4. Good job. You guys practiced that this week and I can't wait to see them.
Hi boys and girls, it's Miss Emily here with Craft Time. Today you learned all about how Nehemiah prayed for God's help. I thought it'd be great for us to make a prayer hand to learn exactly how we can pray. Parents, I'll mention some Bible verses for us to write down. I would encourage you to pause the video or go back at the end to look these verses up and discuss them with your child. Okay kids, first you need to trace your hand. Now let's talk about the different pieces of prayer. The little finger represents confessing sin. This means we need to ask God to forgive us when we do something wrong or that goes against what He tells us. Write on your little finger, confess sin. 1 John 1:9. Parents, this is a great time for you guys to look up 1 John 1:9 and read it together. The ring finger represents asking God to help me. Let's write help from me. 1 Samuel 1:27. The middle finger represents intercession. That's a big fancy word that means asking for help for others. Let's write help for others. Ephesians 6:18 through 19. The index finger represents thanksgiving. We should thank God for everything He has done in our life and when He answers our prayers. Let's write thank you. Ephesians 5:20. Finally, the thumb represents praise. Our thumb can touch every finger. This shows that praise should be a part of our entire prayer. Let's write praise. Psalm 146, 1 and 2. Now you're ready to use this hand to help guide your prayers. Boys and girls, this isn't the only way to pray, but I hope this gives you some help. I hope you all have a wonderful day. Bye!